Okay. We still got this. Hey y'all, it's Olivia of AV Reads. And I'm back. Post extended hiatus, I'm back for an August TBR video. So, enjoy. I never intended for this break to be this long, and I recorded some videos. I recorded multiple videos in May or June, and was like hoping to get back in the swing of uploading to YouTube, but then like I recorded them and then I got you know what finally, and so then I wasn't able to edit them or post them, and then my boyfriend came for 6 weeks from Australia, and it was our first time seeing each other since before you know what, and so I was not doing any booktube stuff. And so here we are. It's been like 8 weeks longer than like whenever I recorded those videos, at least. So yeah, it must have been in May that I recorded them. So maybe you'll see those at some point if I go back and record them. I mean, if I go back and edit them, but I had recorded I don't think it's behind me. I recorded a reading vlog for Eric LaRocca's new book. Well, it came out, not his newest book, but You've Lost a Lot of Blood. So I recorded a whole reading vlog because I read it in one sitting. So maybe that'll come eventually. I don't remember what else I recorded. I think maybe a tag video or something that was trying to get me back in the swing of things. So maybe you'll see those, but sometimes it's hard to get myself to go back and look at stuff that's been old. So who knows? But today I'm here to do an August TBR video because there's multiple things that I'm looking forward to reading this month for different challenges, prompts, buddy reads, and so I just wanted to talk about them. So the first read is not associated with anything. This might end up being a July read. It's the last day of July, so I still have time, but it's A Spectral Hue by Craig Laurance Gidney. And it's really good so far. I don't know exactly what to, so it says a novel of art, obsession, and the ghosts that haunt us all. I think that's as good of like a genre prompt as I can come up with. I don't think it fits like necessarily firmly in one genre. It's kind of supernatural, has a lot to do with art and artists. It's about a grad student who is going to study the art movement from a micro geographical region called Shimmer, Maryland, that played host to a loose movement of African American artists, and it's a lot of like art with like trick of the eye art. So I think that's why you get to see like a cover that's like this, where it's a lot of different shades, but there's actually a picture. It comes up much more clearly on video than like whenever you're looking at the cover physically, that it's not as easy to see the image. So I'm hoping to finish this today because I thought it was going to be I don't know, but the pace, I'm reading it a lot faster than I thought I would. That I read like a little over 50 pages last night, so I might get through this today, and it might end up being a July read and not an August read, but if not, I'll be finishing this in the first week of August. And then I have a couple of buddy reads, one for sure, one might be September, but I am so excited to finally be reading The Night of the Moonbow by Thomas Tryon with Kelsey of Slime and Slashers, and we've talked about reading this I think since maybe fall of last year. It was like I think right after summer, because we were talking about that we wanted to read this during summer because it's set at a summer camp. So it's been sitting right in front of me for like 9 months now, and it's finally time. I did go ahead and start it just because like I said, my boyfriend has just left and I haven't been in the habit of reading, and so I thought that it might take me a bit to get back in my swing of things with reading, but now I'm feeling optimistic. I wasn't planning on doing like a whole TBR. I was planning on being like, you know, if I finish these 2 books this month, that's great. But now I'm feeling really good about reading, and I think that I kind of need something to deep dive into, so that's why I started this early, just to make sure I would get through this month, because I wanted to commit to this buddy read if nothing else this month. So it's good so far. This is the first thing that I read by him. It's about Camp Friend Indeed, which is a Bible camp that's in the woods, but it was 1938, a year notorious for cruelty, unnatural acts, and terror. Cabin 7 was chosen to get the new camper, a mysterious orphan with a talent for music and more interest in collecting spiders than winning baseball. Chilling secrets, transforming into something primitive and dangerous. I've never read any reviews of this. I've read lots of reviews of Harvest Home, which is like the one that I originally wanted to read first from him, but I got this at a used bookstore and it's perfect timing, and I'm really excited to be reading this with Kelsey because I feel like she has a lot more knowledge of like vintage horror than I do, so it'll be interesting to see like her thoughts on it as well. But it's good so far, enjoying it. Definitely gonna finish this month. The next possible buddy read for this month, but might end up being a September read, is Akwaeke by Becky Manawatu. I need to get back in touch with my friend because she's not a booktuber, just a friend that loves everything New Zealand Kiwi. So I wanted to read a Kiwi book with her, and I'll just read the synopsis, even though this is probably gonna get on next month's TBR. Taukiri was born into sorrow. Akwaeke can be heard in the sound of the sea he loves and hates, and in the music he draws out of the guitar that was his father's. It spills out of the violence that killed his father and sent his mother into hiding, and the shame he feels about abandoning his 8-year-old brother to a violent home. But Taukiri's brother Arama is braver than he looks, and he has a friend, and his friend has a dog, and the 3 of them together might just be strong enough to turn back the tide of sadness. So this is a very acclaimed book out of New Zealand that it won like whatever the New Zealand's book award is the year that it came out, which I think was like maybe 2020, but it just got a US release this year. And I absolutely love this cover. It's a really gorgeous book that the inside flap is like this bright orange as well. So yeah, really looking forward to this, but it's a little bit chunky and I'm not sure if my friend has it yet, so that might be for next month. One last non-spooky book before Halloween in September. Of course, what is an August TBR video without Garbaugust? So Garbaugust is a readathon reading challenge started by Ollie at Criminali, and has various co-hosts, many of which I, love and admire on YouTube. But the idea behind Garbaugust is just to read garbage for all of our August. Garbage for all of August. And I have a little garbage on my shelf, so why not? Not too much though. So I think some of these are a little bit of a stretch in terms of how garbagey they could be. But there's like 4 different week prompts. So the first one is something that's like especially sexual or violent. The second one is something published 1980 prior. And the third one is anything goes. And then the 4th week is WTF, like something that's just like very off the walls. So I have a tentative TBR for this. There's also like an additional Garbaugust bingo, which played into like my idea behind some of these prompts, or behind some of the books that I picked out, but I'm definitely not going to be able to complete all of them. But the first week, the one that I thought that I would just like go with something like horror, violent, but I never read anything very sexy. So I thought that I would for this read something very trashy and get out of my comfort zone. And so I'm gonna have to double check the author's name on this. It's called Dingo Wild by, I don't remember off the top of my head. I looked this up before. It's like Trixie Couper or Tracy, I don't know. The book cover will be here, so you'll be able to see it. But this is a, I'm saying my Australian fiance. I think I've said boyfriend so far. We're engaged now. My fiance. It's hard to change over from saying boyfriend. He's just left, and I thought that I would find a good Australian romance. And so whenever I saw that there was also a Garbaugust bingo prompt for a shapeshifter romance, what better than a dingo shapeshifter romance to really lean into the idea behind Garbaugust. Since I'm having to stretch a couple of the other prompts, I think that this makes up for the rest of my reading this month. That I truly I think that this has like 6 ratings, no reviews on Goodreads. I just think it's gonna do a lot for me, and I think we're all really, really excited for me that I'm doing this. And yeah, I think it's gonna be a good time, and hopefully it doesn't awaken anything in me. Maybe it does, who knows. The next prompt is for the reading something from the 80s and prior. So published in 1980 comes The Blind Fury by John Saul. This is the only physical book that I have that is, I mean, I know it's published in 1980, but I think that there's no response to the 80s yet in this book. That this was definitely written in the 70s if it was published in 1980. So I think that it's in line with the heart of the prompt. And if we think that this doesn't count, I've also checked out the ebook for The White People by Arthur Machen on Scribd, and although I don't think this would be considered garbage now, was definitely considered garbage for his day. So much more vintage horror. But John Saul's Comes the Blind Fury. A century ago, a gentle blind girl walked the cliffs of Paradise Point. Then the children came, taunting, teasing, until she lost her footing and fell shrieking her rage to the drowning sea. Now Michelle has come from Boston to live in the big house on Paradise Point. She's excited about her new life, ready to make new friends, until a hand reaches out of the swirling mist, the hand of a blind child. She's asking for friendship, seeking revenge, whispering her name. But just like absolutely in love with this cover. It looks so good. Got this recently from a used bookstore in St. Louis, and they were so nice to put like a plastic protective cover on it for me so that it looks delicious forever. So is this garbage? The ratings aren't good on Goodreads, so I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yeah. And I feel like it's a lurid cover, so we're making this work. We're making this work. This is what I have on my shelves, and I do think that it counts. So the next one is Anything Goes. So I've picked out 2 possibilities for this one. The first one being, neither of these look like garbage. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. But this one, Come Into My Parlor by Marilyn Campbell, is about someone in the world of book cover illustrations, and then there's a woman in this that's the sleek blonde beauty who's the hottest cover model for these book illustrations. So I feel like that being in that world is a little bit trashy, but really like just the vibe of the synopsis reminds me of like a Giallo, like New York Ripper or something that's reminds me of the world of film that I would consider like trashy, in a good way, in a way that I love. But I think that this could be a good possibility for an anything goes, because I also just want to be reading stuff that's on my shelf. And this one, A House Divided by Deborah LeBlanc, is about a haunted house that was like split into a duplex, and it's written by a local to me author, set in Louisiana. I'm counting this one in because this was published in 2006, and this cover looks trashy for 2006, but also look, win $5,000, a book that has to tempt you with money and a new desktop computer. I feel like this is similar to Ollie's prompt for reading a book with cigarettes in it, because for 2006, I think saying a new desktop computer and trying to get you to read this so that you can win $5,000, that's a little trashy, and I like it. And then the last week, you'll have to tell me if this counts. I have some other like things that I've been looking through on Scribd that are definitely more true to the WTF prompt, like clowns versus spiders and just weird stuff that I'm looking at. But the one that is on my shelf that I would like to read is Bite by Richard Laymon. I definitely wanted to read something by Richard Laymon for this because I've heard that he's very trashy, and this is the only one that I have on my shelf. It doesn't sound like the trashiest one, but my fingers are crossed. It's almost midnight, cat's on the bed, face down and naked. She's Sam's former girlfriend, the only woman he has ever loved. Sam's in the closet with a hammer in one hand and a wooden stake in the other. Together they wait as the clock ticks down because the vampire is coming. When Kat first appeared at Sam's door, he couldn't believe his eyes. He hadn't seen her in 10 years, but he'd never forgotten her, not for a second. But before this night is through, Sam will enter a nightmare of blood and fear that he'll never be able to forget, no matter how hard he tries. So I don't think it's like a WTF trashy, but it's definitely trashy, and I want to read it, and I've heard, you know, he's been built up in my mind, so it's almost like a WTF read for me just because it's what am I getting myself into territory. So that's it. So I really, really want to read this. So I'm thinking, I don't know. Y'all tell me, which one would you pick? Come Into My Parlor, A House Divided. This one's actually not as old as it looks either. From the 90s, I think. 92, so I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards this one because it's been tempting me on the shelf for so long that I want to read like a local horror. The only thing left to talk about for this TBR, I'm sure that I will listen to other audiobooks and that there will be other stuff that I read during this month. I'm also reading You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi, which maybe that goes into something that's sexual too, because I don't usually read romances, but I'll read anything they write. So that's how I ended up reading. I'll end up reading 2 romances this month, which is not like me. But the only other thing that I want for sure to plan on reading this month is that there's something called the Sealey challenge, which is a challenge to read a book of poetry every day for the month of August. That for me, I don't think is attainable, especially with like my other reading plans for this month. But I do think that being mindful about getting in the habit of reading poetry is something that I can do this month. And so I want to try for every day of August to read at least a little bit from one of the poetry collections that I have. So there's 2 that I've already started and I've been making my way through. Postcolonial Love Poem by Natalie Diaz, An American Sunrise by Joy Harjo, as well as a new one that I just picked up. Like I said, I'll read anything that they write. Content Warning Everything by Akwaeke Emezi. So I don't think that it would even be a positive thing for me to try to push myself through a poetry collection every day, just because it's something that I think I need to spend more time with. The challenge itself is like very flexible too, that you can read like short little chapbooks or whatever. But yeah, I want to try maybe complete all 3 of these. That would be awesome if I could, just by reading a little bit every day. So that is my reading plans for the month of August. So a spectral hue, some poetry, comes the Blind Fury. I think we're gonna go with the House Divided, but y'all tell me. Stack this up. The Night of the Moonbow, and maybe, oh wait, so I think we're looking pretty good. I don't think I need, oh, almost forgot the Richard Laymon. That would have been a disaster. Yeah. So, and then of course my Wild Dingo read, so be looking for that review. I'm gonna be the first review on Goodreads for that book. So let me know what y'all are reading in August. If you're participating in Garbaugust or the Sealey challenge, tell me what you're planning on reading. But it's so good to be back, and hopefully we'll talk to each other again soon. Bye.